back to boring looking slides. They're not colorful. All right. Thank you, James, for putting me second next to John. Now I have to defend the title and then say some things that you may not like. All right, let's start with some of the happenings in the last few months. So I think most of this is what you already know. I wouldn't start the talk with, have you heard about ChatGPT? Right, but what I might ask is, have you built anything cool with ChatGPT or Midjourney or generative AI? So if you built anything, feel free to talk about it. So I've done something similar. So my uncle was turning 60, so everyone was recording messages for him. So I decided to do something cool. So I've made my grandparents do a wish for them, except they died 30 years ago. So I had very old photographs of them. So it was just a couple of hours work over a weekend to enhance the photos, animate the photos, right, and make them talk. Sadly, I didn't have their voice, or else we could have cloned the voice as well. So this was built in a couple of hours' time, and I'm not a VFX artist. I'm not a Photoshop expert, but it was well received. It was an emotional part. So I've used something similar, like doing studio portraits of French kids who are really camera shy. So interesting stuff. I'm not a data scientist. I'm an AI enthusiast. So there are a lot of people like you and me doing cool stuff. So anything that you see over the right, like talking to a PDF, it might sound ridiculous, but there are applications where you can talk to a PDF, right? It could be a long textbook, right? It could be an essay. You can summarize an essay, or it could be interesting stuff like company reports, for example. So you're researching something. So it could be company reports. People started talking to YouTube videos. Ridiculous as it may sound, but you can talk to YouTube videos, try understanding different concepts quite quickly, right? These applications don't need a researcher or a data scientist, but you need to understand how the models work and then how you can put them together, how you can chain different things together, right? So that's where I see a new breed of professionals who are adept at doing this stuff. So the bottom one, like you may have heard about AutoGPT, Baby AGI, MetaGPT, or words like that, where even people building frameworks, agent frameworks, like stack different LLMs together, create frameworks which can do the research for you, or which can do stuff, or come at an action by throwing some tools at it. So let's see why these AI engineers are emerging now, why we think that now is a bigger opportunity for people like me to carry out AI projects, right? Large language models, we've heard about it a number of times already, but the models are getting better and better. As organizations like OpenAI throwing more data at it, more compute power at it, the models are getting better and better. Not just researchers, but ordinary engineers are spending more and more times with the models. They are identifying areas which are not covered by the research, but still useful. So these are emergent capabilities. So if you look at some of the benchmarks, like Google's big bench, I think you'd see that people are trying different things and are figuring out that LLMs can do stuff. So that's one area, right? And you also have most models as APIs these days, right? So everything is available as an API. So as Courtney was talking about some of the AI projects they're doing at Pendo, using APIs like ChatGPT, or to do cool projects, right? So everything is available as an API. You may not be able to hire researchers, right, data scientists, who are more keen on working for organizations like OpenAI and then big companies who are GPU rich, right? So you have this concept of GPU rich and GPU poor. So most researchers are concentrated towards those companies. So you may not be able to hire them, but you can definitely get an API from them. All right, so something that's useful. And if you see some of the stats from Bureau of Labor, so these are taken from the US. So you only have around 150,000 data scientists in the US, but you have over 2 million. So when you take worldwide, so I think you have around 50 million developers in total worldwide compared to the total number of data scientists. So the pace at which products are being developed, it's easy for an engineer to adopt what is already available. Right? By concept, an engineer is taking something that's already proven or available and then starts working on it, like starts building architectures on top of it, starts building workflows on top of it to make things work. You'd also see the shipping speed, right? So organizations like OpenAI or Midjourney or anything, but the pace at which new features are being developed, it's ridiculous, right? You see every new week something's getting developed or something's getting pushed. So at this pace, if you are to iterate, if you are to carry out MVPs or anything, I think you should start working on using existing models. Right? You can spend years of research time, the data at it, and then finally figure out that the model that you've done may not be as good as the base model. So people would start with a base model, try an MVP. If it sticks, or if it's something that's definitely doable, then they can start looking at fine-tuning, building more customized models on top of models. So I'd say these are probably some of the reasons why we'd see a need for AI engineers or engineers looking at specific areas related to AI. So where do you see them fit? Like when DevOps concepts arised, right? People started fusing ops into development workflows, and this whole area of DevOps engineer evolved. So similarly, where do you see AI engineers fit? So there's a small dotted line, I'll say, an API line. So people who are fine using this APIs to develop workflows, they can develop agents or stack them together, chain them together, or build tools on top of it. I think that's the area where AI engineers would fit. So there's a lot of opportunity for full stack engineers, Python engineers, or general software engineers to get into the area where they should be looking at chains, agents, tooling, infrastructure, etc. So there'll still be, I'm not saying like data scientists or ML engineers, I'm not taking away their work. There'll still be a lot of work to be done by them in the research areas, on all the traditional things they would do, but it's a small dotted line, so you can jump between the areas depending on what you would like to do. So I would say this is where AI engineers fit. Some of the responsibilities I'd see an AI engineer would do, like the first thing and foremost thing is catching up on the news, right? So there's loads and loads of things happening every day, right? So if you're not up to date with the news, you're already behind. So these things are changing like every day. So everyone's experimenting, everyone's doing stuff. So I'd say somebody should need to understand what the limitations are of the base models. So whether it's GPT-3 or when to use 3.5 or when to use 4 or when to use Claude, for example, right? When to use open source. So they need to be adept, or they need to understand where and when to use the models, different models, so multimodality or multi-model stuff. So when to use a model like Blip, for example, where you have both text and image, or when to use a model and why. So different prompt engineering techniques. So you need to keep up with the field, understand if there are new techniques, or how we evolve, or how we manage prompts, how we version prompts, or if you're changing the model, what changes? Because you cannot take a prompt from one model to a different model. So be research savvy, understand the tools. So once people started using these models, they started coming up with new and new architectures, right? To counter hallucinations, we have retrieval augmented generations, where you search for something, semantic search an existing document, get the chunks, and then let the model summarize it so that you can get away with some of the hallucinations, right? How do you store those chunks? How do you embed those chunks? So an AI engineer need to be aware of at least some concepts like vector databases, how to do embeddings, do semantic searches, etc. They need to understand different frameworks or different modules that are being developed at rapid pace. So something like Llama Index, or if you've heard of LangChain, for example, semantic kernel from Microsoft, need to learn and understand or keep up with them, or stuff like guardrails, Nemo guardrails from NVIDIA, to understand how you can contain the responses from a model, how to get proper responses. So stuff like that, right? And everything else to make it production ready. So every other engineering aspect is still there, whether you're looking at how to rate limit, how to cost control, how to apply best practices architecture. Everything is still there, but they have to learn. And lastly, innovation. You mentioned about the UX part. So things are changing, right? So how do you present it? Whether a chat response, or how do you design your UX? How do you utilize the models? So these are some of the responsibilities that I'd say an AI engineer should, or a job of an AI engineer. So it's beyond prompt engineering. So it's not just simple prompt engineering, but also coming up with architectures, or how we do retrievals, even how do we chunk a document, because it also depends. There are different chunking strategies, right? How do you chunk a document so that you don't lose the meaning? So different chunking strategies, etc. Something that any engineer can learn. Really, so these are some of the responsibilities that I see an AI engineer should have. So you may not be called an AI engineer in your organization. So it could be a prompt engineer, right, or AI ops, or different names. So Gen AI engineer, as Google calls it, but different responsibilities, let's say. So what do we do? How do we learn, right? So do we go take a PhD, or do we take a course? I would say everything is available over the internet, right? So you have different courses from deep learning, AI. They do short courses, like an hour courses. So you could spend a weekend so going through a couple of concepts to understand what LangChain is, what semantic kernel is, right, or what Llama Index is. Different courses you can go through. If you're a Microsoft shop, primarily Azure, if your organization is primarily Azure, there are courses from Microsoft. So everything is free, but what I'm trying to say is stuff is available over the internet and things are changing. So you'd have to keep up, and and the training is available from Google, from Microsoft, from Amazon as well, I think. Even free certifications, right? You can spend a day, if you're not technical, but you still want to understand what generative AI is all about. So you could spend a weekend or spend a day and get a certification from Microsoft, who talk about, or who walk you through all the different nuances, everything that even John mentioned. They talk about how and what is involved, etc. So you can still go through and understand. So that will be a start point for an AI engineer. If you want to pivot from your full stack role or from your backend role to it, it's doable. It's doable. So we were talking about the hype cycles previously. So if you've not heard of hype cycles, so you can go to Gartner's hype cycle. As John mentioned, at the moment, generative AI is at the top of hype cycle, which means that most organizations are throwing money at it, and they want to make LLMs the solution for every problem, right? So it'll go down the trough, But at the end, I think there will be use cases, some of the use cases where generative AI would fit, where generative AI would fit. So it's like some examples like people doing advertisements in as simple time as in maybe an hour or two, right, without deep expertise, right, or summarizing documents, for example, or different use cases. But the problems do exist. So I'm not taking away that an AI engineer would solve everything. So problems do exist. It's like hallucinations. Yes, if you try asking it stuff that it doesn't know, or even if it's stuff it knows, it tends to hallucinate. So you shouldn't be like a lawyer who was trying to frame a case by coming up with fake cases and then getting caught, right? Or it shouldn't be like a professor who was asking ChatGPT whether the students have written the article, copying from ChatGPT, and then it obviously said yes. So he failed all the students. So they do exist, but there are techniques. Like I said, everyone's working extensively to come up with newer and newer techniques to minimize the hallucinations. So even from a research front, when the models are being developed, let's say the next set of models, the GPT-4, is far less at hallucinating when compared to 3.5, for example. Right. So that front, it's getting better and better. There are techniques like retrieval augmented generations, for example, or fine-tuning the models for your own data. Things are getting better. So the other part, like models are too complex. So this part I do agree from the previous mention, that they're too complex to understand. So sometimes you may want to know what every neuron does or how it's generating what it does. So these models tend to be not deterministic, like traditional programming, the way we do, right? If you code something, you would know what the output is, right? But with LLMs, you may not get the same response every time. But there should be a way where I think there will be efforts to put in the area of explainability, that there'll be more. And there are some models which will help with the explainability of part. There are even, I think even OpenAI has neurons where you can click the neuron and then see what it does. Don't take my word for it. But yeah, it gets better. There are also cases where people think that the models may not get better. Right. So there's only so much data available on the internet to throw at it. Right. So after a certain point, right, if the parameters are too much optimized, or if there's not enough data. So most organizations are no longer proactive or no longer disclosing the data they're using for the fear of getting into legal entanglement. So, but I think again, in this case, I wouldn't agree. I'd say definitely the next model from OpenAI or the next model from open source like Meta would be better. So even Google are doing a model called Gemini, which is probably towards the end of the year, which is presumed to be far better than what's already available there. And the last one is prompting is too hard. To build the initial bits, to build a sample use case, it's quick. But once you get into the nuance, once you get into more and more details, yes, it's definitely hard. But that's where different prompt engineering techniques come into place. So for the one example that I got through, like a model called GPT-3, which is a precursor to ChatGPT model, was released back in May 2020, right? It's only 2 years later, somebody figured out that if you ask it, or if you add a statement called let's think step by step, just by adding a small statement called let's think step by step, it's called zero-shot reasoning, by the way, the model started performing lot better. So there will be techniques. It is an evolving field. There'll be newer and newer techniques, zero-shot, few-shot examples. fine tuning, etc. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic, as I'd say. There's just loads and loads of reports. This is just one I just snapped to fill up the slides, but there are just loads and loads of reports from every organization, whether it's Goldman Sachs saying loads of jobs will be automated, whether it's McKinsey reports saying the future state of AI. So this one's from World Economic Forum saying the future of jobs. It's about the future of jobs for the next 5 years. And the state, if you see the top corner, where they state that there are organizations considering upskilling everyone, upskilling in some or the other way on AI-related technologies, right? So anything in the top corner where people upskilling and at the same time adopting technologies. So that's where I'd see more and more need for AI engineers really. And they also rate AI and big data as the third most important skill to know, to learn, only next to critical thinking and analytical thinking. That's pretty much it. What I would want to say, I would say if there are AI engineers in this group or people trying to get into, do so. It's not difficult than you think it is. Open to questions. I think most of the